In the heart of New York City stood one of the largest logistics empires in North America, Helios Global Distribution. Known for its sprawling warehouses, state-of-the-art delivery systems, and billion-dollar operations, the company's main facility glistened with reflective steel walls, polished concrete floors, and the constant hum of productivity. Workers in uniforms moved like clockwork, guided by scanners and supervisors with clipboards. But beneath the surface of this industrial giant lay a secret only one person knew. That secret was Elena Carter, the true heir to the Helios global fortune. At just 28, she was already poised to inherit the company her late father had built from scratch. But unlike most heirs, Elena kept herself out of the spotlight. No press releases, no public appearances, no photos. She lived anonymously, silently observing from behind the curtain. Why? Because she had grown tired of fake affection. Every man she'd met admired her wealth, not her soul. They chased her name, her inheritance, her lifestyle, but never her heart. After a string of heartbreaks, lies, and humiliations, Elena made a radical decision. "I'm going undercover," she told her only confidant, her executive assistant, Harold. "I want to work as a warehouse intern. No titles, no privileges. I want to see how people treat me when they think I have nothing. I want to meet someone who loves the real me." Harold's eyes widened. "Ma'am, that means lifting boxes, sweeping floors, sweating in steel-toed boots." Elena gave a soft smile. "Exactly. If someone can see value in me when I'm invisible, maybe that person is worth everything." The next morning, the transformation began. Elena cut her glossy hair into a practical bob. She borrowed plain, slightly oversized work clothes from a friend's cousin. She wore no makeup, slipped into safety boots, and carried a fake resume printed on budget paper. Her name was no longer Elena Carter. She was just Ella, a warehouse trainee from a small town in Pennsylvania. At the employee entrance of Helios' main distribution hub in Queens, she walked up to the security post holding her forged ID. A bored security guard glanced at her badge. "Warehouse intern?" he asked. "Yes," she replied in a neutral, slightly hoarse voice. He waved her in. "Report to warehouse ops. Office is second door on the left." Elena nodded politely and entered the building. Inside, the warehouse buzzed with movement. Pallets rolled across conveyor belts, forklifts beeped in every direction, and supervisors barked out instructions through headsets. People moved past her without a second glance. Some eyed her briefly, uninterested. No greetings, no smiles. When she reached the warehouse ops office, she knocked twice and stepped in. A woman sat behind a cluttered desk. Her name tag read Tina Howard, ops coordinator. "You the new intern?" Tina asked, not looking up from her screen. "Yes, ma'am, my name's Ella." Tina gave a quick glance. "All right, you're assigned to Zone B shipping intake. You'll report to the shift manager and help with unloading, labeling, and restocking. Orientation's over. Get to it." "Yes, ma'am." Elena turned around, heart pounding, as she walked into a new world completely unknown, unfiltered, and real. "Yes, ma'am." "My name is Ella," Elena replied. Tina barely looked up. "All right, you're on shift in Zone B, receiving docks, floor cleanup, and waste sorting. Supply lockers down the hall. Clock in and get moving." "Yes, ma'am," Elena said quietly. She walked over to the storage area, pulled open the heavy steel door, and grabbed a mop, a pair of oversized gloves, an old broom, and industrial-strength cleaning fluid. Her heart beat faster as she stared at the bucket of murky water. This was really happening. Her first shift began. The work was brutal. The warehouse floor was smeared with grease marks from pallet jacks wrappers stuck under shelves, and the loading bay smelled of oil and sweat. The bathrooms, worse. By the end of the first hour, her arms ached, her back stiffened, her hands burned from the harsh chemical cleaner. But she never complained. Day after day, Elena, now Ella, came back. She arrived early each morning, clocked in before anyone else, and quietly pushed her mop through concrete hallways while observing everything around her. Some workers were polite but distant. Others dismissed her entirely, stepping over her mop, bumping past her like she was invisible. But then something different. One afternoon in the staff break area, Elena was cleaning a spill in the corner near the vending machines. That's when she noticed a man sitting alone at a small table near the back. He was tall, quiet, in his early 30s. His uniform was worn but neatly kept, and his lunch was a simple sandwich wrapped in paper and an apple. He wasn't scrolling through a phone or talking with coworkers. He was reading. That alone caught Elena's attention. Then a janitor pushing a cart passed by and accidentally knocked over a crate of bottled water. Without hesitation, the man stood, helped the janitor pick everything up, then handed her one of his own bottles. "Here," he said, "you've earned it more than me." That moment lingered. Later, Elena would learn his name, Marcus Dean, a forklift operator assigned to shipping zone rotations. He was known for being respectful, hardworking, and completely uninterested in office drama. He avoided cliques, helped new hires, and kept to himself. As Elena passed by his table that afternoon, he looked up and gave her a nod. "Good afternoon." She paused mid-step, surprised. "You're talking to me?" she asked, caught off guard. He smiled slightly. "Yeah, I've seen you on shift. You work hard." Elena blinked, warmth spreading through her. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say." He nodded gently. "Take care of those hands." "You too," she replied with a small smile. That brief exchange stayed with her all day. It was the first time anyone had looked her in the eyes with real respect since she started her undercover journey. That evening, Elena sat alone in her tiny rented apartment. Her hands were sore, her boots still smelled of oil, but her mind wasn't on the pain, it was on Marcus. Harold, her assistant, arrived shortly after with food and updates. "Well," he asked as he placed the takeout on the table. "How was day 6 of Operation Warehouse Ghost?" Elena gave a tired but thoughtful smile. "Rough, but something happened today." Harold raised an eyebrow. "What? I met someone. He's different. Quiet, kind. He called me hardworking." Harold narrowed his eyes. "And what's his name? Marcus Dean?" She leaned back in her chair, staring up at the ceiling. "I don't know why, but something about him feels real." Harold raised an eyebrow, pausing mid-bite. "Wait, what? You met someone?" Elena nodded slowly, her voice low but certain. "His name is Marcus." He looked me in the eye. He smiled. "He spoke to me like I mattered." Harold leaned forward, curious. "Do you think he's genuine?" "I don't know yet," Elena admitted, fingers tapping lightly on her cup. "But I'm going to find out, and if he is, then his life will never be the same." The next morning, Elena, still in her coveralls, and Ella badge, returned to the Helios warehouse with a new sense of focus. She moved through her routine, quietly sweeping between shelving zones and wiping down the receiving belts, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept an eye on Zone D, Marcus's primary assignment. It wasn't just about how he treated her anymore. She wanted to know how he lived, how he worked, how he treated others when no one was looking. By mid-morning, she spotted him walking down the central aisle beside a younger colleague. They weren't talking loudly. Marcus was nodding gently, listening more than speaking. There was a calmness in him, no showboating, no arrogance. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He looked like a man who had seen hardship but had learned to carry it with quiet strength. Later that day, during lunch break, Elena sat in her usual corner of the staff cafeteria, away from the main tables beside the vending machines. She had packed a small sandwich in foil and an apple. As she unwrapped her food, she noticed Marcus again. This time, he was already seated a few tables away, eating something from a brown paper bag. A maintenance worker walked by, sweaty, tired, his uniform stained with oil. He looked too exhausted to even reach for the water station. Without a word, Marcus stood, grabbed a sealed bottle of water from his lunchbox, and handed it to him. "Here," Marcus said. "You look like you need it more than I do." The worker smiled weakly. "Thank you, man." Marcus just nodded and sat back down. A few moments later, he looked into his lunch bag again, then glanced around. When his eyes met Elena's, he hesitated, then reached in and pulled out half of his sandwich, walked over to the tired maintenance worker and handed it to him too. "Take it," he said simply. "I've got enough." Elena's hand froze over her own sandwich. That moment, it confirmed everything she had felt the day before. This man was different. Elena watched from a distance, hidden behind a stack of crates near the break room exit. That quiet moment, Marcus giving away half his lunch and a bottle of water, confirmed what she had felt the day before. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't putting on a show. This man had nothing to gain. And yet he gave anyway. After finishing her tasks early that evening, she returned to the intern locker room to sign out. As she stepped outside the staff gate, she noticed Marcus leaving too. Something compelled her to follow, but from a safe distance. He didn't get into a car. He didn't hop on a bike. He simply walked. His pace was steady, his posture relaxed. She kept her distance, keeping to the other side of the street, hood up, blending in. Marcus walked nearly 20 minutes through a row of modest neighborhoods and narrow blocks before arriving at a small, weathered apartment building. 2 floors, faded paint, but neat. Well-swept steps, flower pots on a few windows. From across the street, Elena paused. "So that's where he lives," she whispered to herself. No car, no complaints, just resilience. She stood there for several moments, lost in thought. This wasn't someone chasing attention or approval. He wasn't performing for anyone. He was real, humble, sincere. That night back at her rented apartment, she met with Harold over a quiet dinner. I followed him home today, she said softly, setting down her cup of tea. Harold stared. You followed him? From a distance, she clarified. He lives in a tiny apartment, walks all the way to work, doesn't even take the subway, and today, he gave away half his lunch, Harold whistled. That's rare these days. I want to do something for him, she said, but discreetly. He must never know it was me. What exactly do you have in mind? Elena leaned forward. First, make sure he never goes to bed hungry again. Find out who his landlord is. Pay 6 months of his rent. Anonymously. Harold blinked, then nodded. Consider it done. Elena smiled faintly. Also, find out what he studied. He's clearly smarter than the job he's doing. I want to know why he's still driving a forklift. The next morning, Marcus stepped out of his apartment and found his landlord waiting on the front steps holding a slip of paper and grinning from ear to ear. Morning, Mr. Dean, the old man greeted. Morning, Marcus replied, cautious. I was just about to come find you, the landlord said, patting his pocket. Got some good news for once. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What is it? Some angel out there just paid 6 months of your rent? The man chuckled. No name, no message, just said to tell you you're covered until next year. Marcus froze. What, are you serious? Counted it myself. It's real. Whoever they are, they wanted no credit, just said to let you breathe easy. Marcus stood silent for a moment, blinking. Then quietly, thank you. Whoever you are, that walk to work felt different, lighter. For the first time in years, he wasn't calculating how to stretch every last dollar to survive. Later that day, during his break, Marcus found himself back in the hallway near the intern lockers. That's when he spotted Ella, mop in hand, still in her navy blue coveralls. Good morning, she said with a warm smile. Good morning, Marcus replied. You won't believe what happened today, she said, her tone bubbling with energy. What is it? He asked, pretending not to know. My rent, she said, almost laughing. It's been paid. 6 months, no name, no reason. My landlord said it just showed up. Marcus stared at her, playing the part. Seriously, she nodded. I have no idea who would do that, but whoever it was, I hope they know how thankful I am. Marcus smiled softly. Maybe they already know. Maybe you've already thanked them in your own way, she chuckled. Maybe. They stood there for a moment, the silence between them calm and filled with something unspoken. Then she said quietly, kindness really is a strange kind of magic, isn't it? Marcus nodded. The kind that doesn't want to be seen but changes everything. Marcus looked surprised, though he masked it well. Wow, that's incredible, he said, his voice warm. The world works in mysterious ways sometimes. Ella nodded, her voice suddenly tightening. I wish I could hug whoever did it, just to say thank you. Marcus gave a gentle smile. I'm sure they already know, and maybe one day you will. She chuckled softly. Maybe. Then after a moment of pause, she looked at him, something thoughtful in her eyes. You know, you're different too, she said. He blinked. Me? Yeah, she nodded. Most people around here act like warehouse staff and interns don't exist. But you always say hi. You always listen. You treat people like they matter. Marcus shrugged, modest. It costs nothing to be kind. She smiled at that. True. Just then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly, then excused herself. Break's over. I should get back to my station. He nodded. Same here. As she walked away, Marcus stood still for a moment, watching her disappear down the corridor. Elena? He whispered to himself, still calling her by the name he didn't know wasn't real. You have no idea. From that day forward, something shifted inside him. Workdays used to feel long and repetitive, but now Marcus found himself looking forward to every shift, not because of the pay, but because of her, Ella. She had become the bright spot in his gray routines, always calm, always kind. She didn't pretend to be anyone special, yet somehow she stood out in every room. Her uniform was plain, her lunch was small, but her spirit, her generosity was something rare. One afternoon, after a long and sweaty shift, hauling shipments, Marcus took his usual break in the corner of the staff cafeteria. He sat alone, wiping sweat from his brow, too tired to eat. Ella entered quietly, lunchbox in hand, and walked to her usual spot. When she noticed Marcus sitting by himself, she hesitated for a second, then walked straight to him. You haven't eaten, she said gently. He gave a tired smile. Not yet. She didn't ask why. She simply opened her small plastic container, slid it across the table to him, and said, Please eat. I already had something earlier. Marcus froze. No, I can't take your lunch. Please, she said again with a soft, steady smile. I want you to. I don't have much, but I can share. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then slowly he picked up the spoon and took a bite. "Thank you, Ella," he said. "You don't know what this means to me." She sat down beside him in silence, watching him eat. After a pause, she said quietly, "I see how people treat you sometimes, like you're invisible, like your work doesn't matter. But I see you. Every day you show up, work harder than anyone, and never complain." He paused, looking at her. "You're the only one who really sees me." She gave a soft laugh. "I see more than most people think." They smiled at each other, the kind of quiet, knowing smile that didn't need words. For a moment, the world around them disappeared, but not everyone in the warehouse shared their kindness. Helios Global's General Operations Manager, Mr. Charles Kessler, was a different breed altogether. Arrogant, entitled. He strutted around the facility in designer loafers and silk ties, always holding his latest high-end smartphone like a trophy. Staff feared him. Some of the women flirted with him. Others avoided him altogether. But Ella, as always, kept her distance. And that intrigued Charles. One day, without warning, he called her to his office. "You're a beautiful girl, Ella," he began, leaning back in his leather chair. "Thank you, sir," Ella replied cautiously, unsure where the conversation was going. Charles Kessler leaned back in his leather chair, his eyes scanning her slowly. "I've been watching you," he said. "You're different. You keep to yourself. You don't flirt. You don't beg. You're not like the others." Ella stayed quiet. Charles gave a smug smile. "That's why I like you. I can give you more. A better life. You know I practically run this company." She blinked, confused. "You run Helios?" "Of course," he said confidently, waving a hand. "My name's not on the documents, sure, but the board listens to me. The staff, they jump when I speak. I'm the real power here. If you stay close to me, your life will change. I'll double your salary. Get you out of that dusty locker room, maybe even buy you something nice. Real clothes, a proper phone. No more struggling." Ella sat up straighter but kept her tone composed. "Thank you, sir, but I'm not interested." Charles's smile faded slightly. "You think I'm bluffing? You don't believe I can take care of you." "It's not about belief," she replied gently. "I'm simply not interested." His expression hardened. He laughed coldly. "So you'd rather spend your life pushing a mop, eating cold sandwiches, walking to work in worn-out boots?" She stood. "It's still better than pretending to love someone for what they have." And with that, she turned and walked out of his office. Charles sat there stunned, then angry. From that day forward, things changed. Subtle but cruel. He began assigning her more shifts than anyone else. Made snide comments during team briefings. Undermined her in front of supervisors. But Ella never reacted. She stayed strong, she kept working, and she kept smiling. What Charles didn't realize was someone had noticed everything. Marcus had seen her exit the office that day, her expression composed but guarded. He had seen the change in Charles's attitude, the extra workload, the tension, and it stirred something deep in him. That afternoon, during a break near the back hallway, Marcus walked over to her. She was leaning against the wall, sipping water, her shoulders visibly tired. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She gave a tired smile. "Yes, you sure?" She shrugged. "Just a long day." He hesitated, then said, "I saw you share your lunch yesterday. You didn't have to." "I know," she replied softly, "but I wanted to. There's something peaceful about giving. It reminds me that even when life is hard, I still have something to offer." Marcus looked at her quietly, admiring her strength, her grace, her refusal to bend under pressure. In that moment, he didn't see a warehouse intern. He saw something rare. "You have more to offer than you know," Marcus said softly, his voice carrying the weight of quiet sincerity. Ella chuckled, the sound a little surprised. "You sound like someone who knows me better than I know myself." "Maybe I do," he replied gently, not breaking eye contact. She held his gaze for a moment, then asked, "What about you? Who are you really?" Marcus gave a half smile. "Just a forklift driver. For now." Ella nodded slowly, as if she already knew there was more to him than met the eye. "Well, you're a very special forklift driver." She turned and headed back toward her workstation, her steps light but thoughtful. Marcus stood there watching her go. Under his breath, he whispered, "And you're not just special, you're rare." That afternoon, the warehouse had fallen quiet. Most staff had gone to lunch, but Ella remained at her desk finishing a stack of intake reports for the training supervisor. Suddenly, a shadow moved across her workstation. She looked up and found Charles Kessler, the operations manager, standing there with a smug grin and something shiny in his hand, a brand new smartphone, still in its sealed box. "I've noticed you've been using that cracked old phone for a while," he said smoothly, placing the box on her desk. "So, take this. It's yours." Ella blinked, unsure what to say. Charles leaned closer. Be mine, sweetheart. Her stomach turned. She looked from the box to his eyes. Sir, no thank you. His smile faltered slightly. Why not? You don't like it. It's not about the phone, she said clearly. I just can't give you what you want. Please, find someone else. Charles's eyes narrowed. I don't want someone else. I want you. Ella stood, her voice calm but firm. I'm sorry, sir. Never. I'm not interested. His expression turned cold instantly. His voice dropped into a hiss. You poor thing. Do you know how lucky you are that I'm even talking to you? Ella remained silent, but her eyes didn't waver. You'll regret this, he sneered. I'll make sure you're gone. Fired. He snatched the phone off her desk and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Ella stood frozen. Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled not from fear of him, but from the weight of what she might lose. She had fought so hard to get this job, to build this fragile new beginning. Moments later, she quietly made her way to the back hallway where she knew Marcus often worked during the late shift. He was there, mop in hand, working in silence. When she saw him, she stopped. Her face tightened, and she quickly wiped her eyes. Marcus looked up instantly. Ella? What's wrong? She shook her head, but her voice cracked. I can't do this anymore. I just want peace. Marcus dropped the mop and stepped closer. Talk to me. What happened? She took a deep breath, then let it all out, the bribe, the insult, the manipulation. How Charles had called her baby, offered a phone as payment, and threatened to destroy her career when she said no. Marcus's fists clenched at his sides, his jaw tightened. He did what Ella gently placed her hand on his arm. Please, don't go to him. I know how hard it was for me to even get here. I can't afford to lose this job. He's the manager, she added, her voice barely above a whisper. He can do anything. Marcus looked into her eyes. He crossed a line. I'll go talk to him. No, she pleaded. Please, he'll get you fired. Don't put yourself at risk. But Marcus had heard enough. Without another word, he turned sharply and strode out of the hallway. Marcus, wait, please, Ella called after him, but he was already halfway across the loading bay, his boots echoing with firm intent. She followed in a panic, but he didn't slow down. He marched straight to the operations office. Knocked once, Asa. Then stepped inside before Charles could even answer. Charles looked up from his desk, stunned. You? He scoffed. What the hell do you want? Marcus didn't flinch. Stay away from Ella. Charles narrowed his eyes. Excuse me, I said. Stay away from her, Marcus repeated louder this time. Keep your filthy hands and pathetic bribes far from her. Charles stood slowly, his expression shifting from amusement to offense. Do you know who you're talking to? Marcus stared him down. I know exactly who I'm talking to. A coward. A predator in a tailored suit who uses fear and fake power to manipulate women. You think you can buy someone's respect with a phone? Threaten their future because your ego got bruised? Not on my watch, Charles laughed bitterly. You must be out of your mind. You're just a forklift driver. A warehouse grunt in steel-toe boots. How dare you barge in here and talk to me like this? You don't scare me, Marcus said calmly, his voice cold. And you can't do anything to me? Charles pointed a shaking finger. I'll make sure you're out of this company by tomorrow morning. I'll call the CEO myself. You'll be gone before the sun rises. Marcus smiled faintly. You can try, but you'll find out soon enough. There's more to this place than your little kingdom. He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a razor-sharp edge. But hear this, Charles. If I ever catch you near her again, if you so much as look at her the wrong way, you'll wish you were never born. Charles stepped back, slightly caught off guard by the certainty in Marcus's voice. There was something unsettling about his calm, his composure, his confidence. For a man supposedly beneath him, he was far too bold, far too sure. Charles frowned suddenly, unsure. Who the hell are you? Really, Marcus didn't answer. He simply turned, walked out of the office, and shut the door behind him. Marcus didn't answer Charles's question. He simply turned and walked out of the office, leaving the arrogant manager frozen in place, angry, rattled, and full of questions. Back in the hallway, Ella waited anxiously. The tension still clung to her like a second skin. When she saw Marcus return, she rushed to him. What happened? She asked quickly. Did he say anything? Did he threaten you? Marcus looked at her with gentle eyes. No, he didn't say much, but I did. She stared at him. What do you mean I told him to leave you alone? Marcus said calmly. And he will. Her face tightened with fear. Marcus, what if he really does it? What if he gets you fired? Marcus gave a small, almost amused smile. Let him try. If anyone's leaving, it won't be me. Ella looked at him puzzled. There was something in his tone, something calm, unshakable, powerful, as if he knew something she didn't. She didn't ask, she just whispered, "Thank you." And he replied softly, "I'll always protect you, no matter what it takes." That night, after a long and exhausting shift, Ella returned to her modest apartment. Her feet ached, her shoulders were sore. She just wanted rest, but when she reached her front door, she stopped in her tracks. Right there on the doormat was a small bouquet of white lilies in a sleek phone box neatly wrapped with a red satin ribbon. Tucked under the ribbon was a small handwritten note. Her heart began to pound. She bent down and picked up the card first. The envelope was unmarked. Inside, in neat, unfamiliar handwriting, it read, "From me to you, your secret admirer." Ella stood frozen, glancing up and down the quiet corridor. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. She unlocked her door, stepped inside quickly, and placed the items on her small kitchen table. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped the phone. Who would do this, she whispered. And why, that night, sleep refused to come. Her mind circled endlessly around the flowers, the letter, the phone. She had never been the type of woman to receive surprises. She lived quietly, kept to herself, trusted no one easily. So, who knew where she lived? Who was watching her? And more importantly, why now? The next morning, as the warehouse stirred to life, Ella went through the motions until break time. Then she quietly slipped down the hallway behind the loading docks where she always found Marcus on his shift. He was there just like always, gently mopping the corridor earbuds and lost in the rhythm of routine. "Marcus," she said softly. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Ella." She stepped closer, a little hesitant. "Something strange happened last night." Marcus's smile faded, replaced with concern. "What is it I got home?" she said, voice low, and found flowers and a phone at my door. His eyes widened slightly. There was a note, she continued. It said, "From me to you, your secret admirer." Marcus paused, eyebrows raised, looking genuinely surprised. "Really?" Marcus asked softly. Ella nodded quickly, her voice trembling. "Yes, I'm scared. I don't know who's watching me. I want to report it to the police." Marcus set the mop aside and stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Ella, don't go to the police. Not yet." She looked at him, her eyes full of concern. "But I don't like it. I don't want random people leaving things at my door. It's unnerving." "I understand," he said gently, "but maybe it's not something dangerous. Maybe it's someone who really admires you and just doesn't know how to say it." She looked unsure. "I'm going to throw it all away. The flowers, the phone. I don't want any of it." "No?" Marcus said quickly. "Don't throw them away? Then take them," she said, almost pleading. "Give the phone to someone who actually needs it." He smiled a little. "No, Ella, it's not for me. It's for you. You should keep it." She shook her head. "I'm not using it. That's fine," he said quietly. "Just hold on to it, and if anything like this happens again, we'll go to the police together." "Okay." She looked up at him, her eyes softer now. "You'll come with me?" "Of course," Marcus said without hesitation. "Always." A small laugh escaped her lips. "This is all so strange. I've never received gifts like this in my life." Marcus chuckled. "You women are lucky. People just leave you flowers and phones out of nowhere." Ella grinned. "Not all women. Definitely not me. I'm not used to this." "Well, enjoy it while it lasts," he said with a playful smile. "Some of us men are still waiting for someone to buy us coffee or a bag of peanuts." They both laughed, and for the first time that day, Ella felt safe, not just physically, but emotionally. Marcus's calm voice, his protective energy, and his steady presence brought her peace in the middle of the unknown. Later that afternoon, Ella was arranging some training documents at her desk when a message popped up on her screen from the front desk. "Please report to the operations manager's office immediately." Her heart skipped. She didn't know whether to expect more harassment or something worse. Still, she rose slowly, walked across the main floor, and knocked on the office door. "Come in?" Charles's voice called. She stepped in. Charles leaned back in his chair, wearing a strange, forced smile. "Congratulations, Ella," he said, folding his hands across his chest. She blinked. "Sir, you've been promoted." Ella stared at him. "Promoted me?" "Yes," he said smoothly. "You're now being moved to the senior logistics coordinator level. Bigger office company, apartment, salary bump, and a car." Her jaw dropped. "Wait, what is this?" "Real?" Charles let out a rehearsed laugh. "Very real. The boss called me himself this morning. Told me to make it official. Said to handle everything right away." Ella's eyes welled up with tears of joy. She had worked so hard, asked for nothing, and now this. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Thank you, sir." Thank you so much. She didn't linger. She turned practically glowing and rushed out of the office, overwhelmed with gratitude. But the moment the door closed behind her, the smile on Charles Kessler's face vanished. His fist slammed onto the desk. "Who the hell is this boss?" he growled. "How can he just call and promote someone like that without even talking to me first?" He stood abruptly, pacing his office like a storm waiting to explode. This Ella girl, something's going on. His thoughts turned twisted. "She must be sleeping with someone high up," he hissed. "The same thing she wouldn't give me, she's giving it to him in secret. That's the only explanation." His jaw tightened, his eyes burning with envy and wounded ego. "She thinks she's smart," he muttered darkly. "We'll see who's smarter." "I'll show her I'm smarter," Charles muttered through clenched teeth, pacing like a caged predator, not knowing that the game had already started to slip out of his hands. Meanwhile, Ella practically danced through the warehouse hallway, her face glowing with joy. She moved quickly past the break room, across the loading zone, and into the back corridor where she knew she'd find him. And there he was, Marcus wiping down the glass doors to the administrative wing. "Marcus," she called out, her voice full of excitement. He turned quickly, caught off guard by her radiant smile. "Ella, you look like someone who just won the lottery." She laughed, her eyes wide. "Guess what happened? What, I just got promoted?" She beamed. Marcus's face lit up. "You what?" She nodded rapidly. "They moved me up to senior logistics coordinator. I'm getting a real office, an apartment, and even a company car." He broke into a wide smile. "That's amazing, Ella. I'm so happy for you." She reached out and held his hand for just a second, the contact warm and real. "I still can't believe it. I've worked so hard for so long, and finally, life feels like it's saying yes." Marcus looked at her, eyes full of pride. "You deserve every bit of it, and more," she smiled back, eyes shining. "Now that I've been promoted, get ready. I'm going to spoil you, my friend." He burst into laughter. "Thank you, my best friend. I can't wait to eat your rich people snacks." Their laughter echoed softly down the quiet hallway, a moment of joy in the middle of concrete and fluorescent light. It was a peaceful Saturday afternoon when Ella invited Marcus over to see her new apartment. The space was fresh, modern, filled with light. Pale walls, soft furniture, minimalistic decor. It smelled faintly of lemon and new beginnings. When Marcus stepped inside, he paused just beyond the doorway and looked around slowly, taking it all in. "Wow," he said, genuinely impressed. "This place is beautiful." Ella smiled warmly. "Thank you. I'm still getting used to it, but I'm grateful." He nodded and took a seat on the edge of a soft gray couch. Though he looked relaxed, something inside him stirred tight, nervous waiting. He had been carrying something in his heart for days. And now, it was time. But first they talked about work, about the ridiculous things that happened during night shifts, about childhood memories, hers filled with books and silence, his with basketball courts and brothers. They laughed, they connected, but the air between them held more than just friendship. Now it shimmered quietly with something unspoken, and Marcus knew the moment had come. After a while, Marcus sat up a little straighter on the couch. His heartbeat quickened. He had played the scene over in his head dozens of times, but now that it was real, his throat felt dry. Still, he couldn't hold it back anymore. "Ella," he said gently. She looked up, curious. "Yeah, please don't be upset," he began softly. "But I need to tell you something." She tilted her head, sensing the seriousness in his voice. "Okay, what is it?" He looked directly into her eyes. "I like you." "A lot," he said. "Actually, I don't just like you, I love you." Ella blinked, startled. The joy in her face softened into a mix of surprise and something deeper, something vulnerable. "You love me," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "Yes, I've felt it for a while now, but I didn't want to say anything too soon. I didn't want to ruin what we had or make you feel pressured." He paused, then added quietly, "I've watched how you treat people, how kind you are, how you stay humble even when everything around you changes. It's not about the promotion, the apartment, the car. None of that. I love your heart." Ella looked down at her hands, quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but honest. "Marcus, I wasn't expecting that." "I know," he said gently, "but I just wanted you to hear the truth, no matter what happens." She looked back up at him. "You're my friend. I care about you, but I don't know if it's love. Not yet. I need time." Marcus nodded slowly. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." She gave him a faint smile. "Thank you for being honest." They spent the rest of the afternoon like old friends, talking, laughing, watching the sunlight shift across her apartment walls, but something had undeniably shifted. Ella felt it. His words echoed in her mind. I love you. By Monday morning, she returned to work still haunted by that moment. She hadn't slept much all weekend. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, heard his voice. She liked Marcus. That much she knew. He was different. He saw her in ways no one else did. But love. She didn't know. That afternoon during lunch, she sat in the staff lounge beside Sheila, a woman from HR she occasionally chatted with. They weren't particularly close, but today Ella needed to talk to someone. You've been quiet all morning, Sheila observed. Everything okay? Ella hesitated. Then after a long pause, she whispered, a friend told me he loves me. Sheila's eyebrows shot up. Ooh, anyone I know, Ella nodded slowly. Marcus, from Zone B. Sheila froze. Wait, Marcus as in… The forklift guy? Ella gave a small nod. Sheila dropped her fork. Are you serious? Yes? Ella replied softly, already sensing the change in Sheila's tone. That's unexpected, Sheila said, voice laced with a mix of judgment and curiosity. She leaned in closer. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. You need to be careful. Why? Ella asked, confused. Think about it, Sheila said bluntly. You just got promoted. You moved into a nice place, got a raise, a car, and now he finds the courage to say he loves you. Ella frowned. Where was all this love when you were carrying shipping boxes and eating plain rice in the corner? Sheila continued. Why didn't he say anything then? Why now? Ella didn't respond. Sheila's voice dropped. Look, you're smart. Don't let his quiet act fool you. Some guys are gold diggers too. They wait, watch, then move when they see something to gain. Ella stared at her half-eaten lunch. Her chest tightened. Sheila leaned back and shook her head. I've seen it happen. Don't be another story. Be wise. After lunch, Ella returned to her desk, but she couldn't concentrate. Her thoughts spiraled. Why now? Why didn't he tell me before? Is he just after what I have? She hated the doubt, but now it wouldn't leave her. She began to question everything. Was Marcus sincere? Did he truly love her, or had he just been waiting for the moment she finally had something to offer? The doubt hurt more than she expected. In the days that followed, Ella found it harder and harder to quiet the voices in her head. There was Marcus's soft voice saying, I love you. There was the comfort of their friendship, the calm he brought into her world. And then Sheila's voice sharp and echoing, he's a gold digger, don't be fooled. Ella tried to brush it off, tried to tell herself she knew Marcus. But the fear lingered like a shadow in her chest. Her thoughts tangled and churned. At work, Marcus felt the change. Ella no longer came by the back corridor to chat between shifts. She still smiled when they crossed paths, but the smile was thin. Careful, almost polite. He saw it and he felt it. One afternoon, while mopping the stairwell landing, Marcus looked up and saw her coming down. Ella, he called with a hopeful tone. Hey, she offered a faint smile. Hi. He paused, hoping she would stop and talk. She didn't. She just kept walking. Marcus stood there staring at the spot where she'd been. The silence she left behind was louder than any words. That night in his small, dim apartment, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, head in his hands. Did I move too fast? Did I misread everything? Or did someone say something to her? Meanwhile, Ella lay in bed staring up at her ceiling. Her new apartment was quiet, still smelled of fresh paint and polished floors. But inside, she was anything but still. She missed Marcus, his steady voice, his kindness, the way he looked at her like she mattered even before her title changed. She wanted to believe him, really believe him. But Sheila's words wouldn't leave her. What if he was just waiting for me to rise? What if everything was planned? She shook her head. But he never asked me for anything, she whispered into the dark. He never even accepted the phone or the flowers. He still does the same job. He still works like before. And yet, the doubt remained. A few days later, during her lunch break, Ella sat alone at the far end of the warehouse cafeteria, pushing pieces of pasta around her plate. At the opposite corner, she spotted Marcus. He looked tired, focused, just like always. Still in his uniform, still doing the work no one noticed. She wanted to go to him, say something, clear the fog between them. She stood ready to walk over. But just then, Charles Kessler walked in. He strutted through the cafeteria like he owned it past Marcus without so much as a glance and stopped directly at Ella's table. Good afternoon, Madam Promotion, he said with a smirk. Ella didn't flinch. Good afternoon, sir, she replied flatly. Without asking, Charles pulled out a chair and sat across from her. I trust you're enjoying the new apartment I am. Thank you. And the car? Yes, sir. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. You know, Ella, I've been thinking. She said nothing. I judged you too quickly, he continued. You're not like the others. You're sharp, quiet, calculated. I don't know what happened between you and the boss, but clearly he likes you. Ella slowly looked up. Excuse me, Charles gave a sly smile. Some girls are smart. They know how to move up. They align themselves with the right man at the right time. I respect that, he shrugged as if offering a compliment. And if things didn't work out with him, Charles added, his voice dipping lower, I'm still here. Ella stood immediately, her expression cool but fierce. No, Charles blinked. No, I'm not interested. Not then, not now, not ever. I'm not interested. Sir, Ella said firmly, please respect yourself. Charles's eyes darkened as he stood squaring his shoulders. So you prefer the forklift guy? That's fine, but don't forget where you are. This company has rules. Watch your steps, Ella. She said nothing more. Her heart was pounding, but her face remained calm as she turned and walked away. Even now, she thought he still talks like he owns everything. She didn't stop walking until she reached the far hallway near the back of the warehouse. That's where she saw Marcus just finishing a shift placing the mop back into the cleaning cart. Marcus, she said gently. He turned surprised to hear her voice. Ella, I'm sorry I've been distant. He offered a quiet, sad smile. I noticed. She hesitated, then added, Can we talk after work? I need to clear my heart. Marcus nodded. Anytime. That evening, they sat across from each other at a small cafe just a few blocks from the warehouse. It was quiet, tucked into a side street with warm lighting and hushed conversations all around them. But the space between them felt heavier than usual, full of questions, feelings, and words that had waited too long. I've been thinking a lot, Ella said softly, stirring her tea without drinking, about what you said. That night. Marcus stayed quiet, listening. I believe you're sincere, she continued. I really do, but I need to be honest too. She paused, her eyes dropping to the table. Someone warned me. Marcus tilted his head. Warned you? She nodded. She said, You only told me how you feel now because I have an apartment, a car, a better title, that you waited until I had something to offer. Marcus didn't speak at first. He just looked at her, calm but hurt. Do you believe that he finally asked, his voice quiet? I don't want to, she said truthfully. But it made me afraid. Marcus leaned forward, resting his arms gently on the table. Ella, I've been poor all my life. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to be talked down to, ignored, used. He paused, his eyes softening. But when I met you, you didn't treat me like that. You saw me even when you had nothing to gain. I felt the same way, he added. I didn't say anything before, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want you to feel obligated. I wasn't sure if you saw me the way I saw you. And then, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Ella's eyes filled with emotion. I don't want your car, Marcus said gently. I don't want your apartment. I just want your heart. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. He smiled, soft, sincere, steady. And even if you still need time, I'll wait, Marcus said. No pressure, just truth. Whether you love me now or later, Marcus said gently. It's okay. Ella looked at him for a long moment, then reached across the table and lightly touched his hand. I'll let my heart speak for itself. Marcus nodded slowly, his expression full of quiet understanding. In the days that followed, the tension at Helios began to ease. Ella and Marcus went back to their usual greetings. A smile here, a quiet word there. The warmth returned even if unspoken. They didn't rush anything. Ella was still reflecting, still watching, and Marcus, true to his word, gave her space without pulling away. But someone else had been watching too. Sheila, the HR associate, the same woman who once whispered venom into Ella's ear, calling Marcus a gold digger, was noticing something she didn't expect. Marcus had a calm strength about him, confidence without arrogance, respect without effort. Even in his simple uniform, he stood tall. Even without a title, he carried himself with quiet authority, and that ironically began to attract her. One afternoon, Marcus was mopping the polished floors of the main reception lobby. His sleeves were rolled up, headphones tucked away. The floor gleamed behind him. That's when Sheila approached. Her heels tapped sharply on the tile, her perfume lingering a little too long. Hi, Marcus, she said with a sweet, honeyed smile. He looked up, surprised to see her. Hello. She leaned casually on the wall, eyes tracing his face. You work too hard. Marcus returned to his task. I do what I need to do. I've been watching you, she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. He stayed silent. You're different, she continued. Rough around the edges, maybe, but handsome, smart, that deep voice. The way you carry yourself, honestly, you're my kind of man. Marcus stood up straight, his hands resting lightly on the mop handle. His face remained calm, but inside something burned. You don't even know me, he said flatly. Sheila giggled, her voice soft. I know enough, and I like what I see. Marcus narrowed his eyes. So, after telling Ella I was a gold digger, he said slowly, now I'm your kind of man. Sheila blinked. What? You told her I was only after her money. That I waited for her to get promoted before making a move, he said, his voice steady but firm. You tried to poison her mind. Sheila tried to recover her smile. Look, maybe I said too much, okay, but that was before I really noticed you. She leaned in slightly. Let's just say I changed my mind. Marcus let out a dry, quiet chuckle, but there was no humor in it. You must be very stupid. Her smile vanished instantly. What? Sheila blinked in disbelief. Yes, Marcus said louder, his voice steady as stone. I said you must be very stupid. She froze, stunned. You think I don't know the kind of woman you are? He continued. You flirt your way across departments. You sleep with men in this company, including that pathetic excuse of a manager, Charles. Sheila's eyes widened, her face drained of color. What did you just say to me? Marcus stepped forward, not threatening, but unwavering. You walk around here like a queen. But the truth is, you've used your body to buy influence. You've been in more offices than the cleaning crew. Sheila shook, visibly rattled. I came to you with respect. No, Marcus replied sharply. You came to me with games, cheap ones, but I'm not one of those hungry men you've fooled. Stay far away from me. Sheila's face turned crimson, her voice cracked with anger. You think you're better than me? You think you're somebody I know exactly who I am, Marcus said without flinching. But it's clear you have no idea who you're talking to. She scoffed, masking her embarrassment. I was trying to help you. I actually thought you were worth managing, but I see now you're just another proud, dirty fool. Marcus smiled faintly, and I'd rather mop floors with dignity than sleep around for attention. He turned back to his mop. Don't ever come near me again. Sheila spun around and stormed off her heels, stabbing the floor like knives. Furious, exposed, defeated. Marcus stood still for a moment, breathing deeply, then calmly resumed mopping as if nothing had happened. But word would spread fast, so would whispers. Later that day, while cleaning the conference hallway, Marcus heard a familiar voice. You look tired, Ella said softly. He turned to her, smiling gently. It's been an interesting day, she raised an eyebrow. Care to share? He chuckled. Let's just say, well, someone who once warned you about me tried to flirt with me today. Ella's eyes widened. Sheila Marcus nodded. What did you say? I told her exactly what she needed to hear. Ella laughed, a real laugh this time. Good. She deserved it. She's always walking around like she owns people. Not this one, Marcus said calmly. She couldn't even afford my respect. They both smiled, and for a moment, it was like all the confusion, all the fear, all the doubt melted away. The air between them felt honest again, real. Trust was rebuilding one truth at a time. It was another busy Thursday morning at Helios Global. Workers moved in and out of the building, clipboards and hand forklifts, humming warehouse doors rolling open and shut. But outside the front gate, a young woman stood quietly. In her hands was a worn brown envelope filled with certificates. She looked nervous, but hopeful. After weeks of searching rejections and silent phones, the young woman's hopes had almost dried up. But then she heard Helios Global was hiring again. She put on her neatest shirt, tied her hair back, and walked to the gates of the warehouse campus with a brown envelope full of certificates. Nervous but hopeful, she was invited inside by security and asked to wait in the operations manager's office. A few minutes later, Charles Kessler walked in. He wore his usual slick smile, the kind that never quite reached his eyes. Good morning, she said softly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down, flipped open her file briefly, then leaned back with a smirk. You're very beautiful, he said slowly. Thank you, sir, she replied cautiously, unsure where this was going. Charles leaned forward, his voice dipping lower. I can give you this job, but first you'll have to do something for me. She blinked, confused. Sir, you heard me, he said, folding his hands. If you want the job, spend the night with me. After that, everything's easy. I'll put you in a top position. Her heart dropped. No, sir, she said, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. I can't do that. Charles's fake charm vanished. He frowned darkly. Then get out of my office, he snapped. You're not ready for the real world. She picked up her envelope with trembling hands and rushed out, blinking back tears. Outside, the sun hit her face like a slap. She stood still for a moment, wiping her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart. So this is what hope looks like in real life, she thought bitterly. A trap in a suit. Just then, Marcus passed by with a cleaning bucket in one hand and a rag in the other. He slowed when he saw her young, shaken, and barely holding herself together. Are you okay? He asked gently. She quickly wiped her face again. Yes, I'm fine. No? He said softly. You're not. She hesitated, then looked into his eyes. Something in his calm, grounded presence made her speak. She told him everything, how she had come for an interview, how Charles had made his demand, how she had said no and been dismissed like garbage. Marcus's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell with slow, contained anger. This isn't the first time, he muttered under his breath. Then he looked her squarely in the eyes. Come back next week, he said, Tuesday morning. Bring your documents, she blinked. But I'll make sure someone checks them. If you're qualified, you'll get the job. The right way. She stared at him, this man in work boots and faded overalls, holding a mop bucket, speaking like a man with authority. You, she asked slowly, how can you make that happen? Marcus simply gave a small knowing smile. Sometimes the one you ignore is the one who can help you the most. She nodded slowly, unsure but desperate enough to believe. Okay, she said quietly, I'll come back. But as she walked away, her thoughts spun fast. Who was that man really, and how could a cleaner speak like a king? What the young woman asked, eyeing him skeptically. Just come back, Marcus said calmly. Tuesday morning. Everything will be handled properly. She looked at him from head to toe, slippers, worn shirt, gloves in hand. You, she asked bluntly, how can a cleaner say something like that? Marcus smiled faintly. Sometimes, the one you ignore is the one who can help you the most. She nodded slowly, her voice cautious. Okay, thank you. But as she walked away, her thoughts twisted in all directions. Who does he think he is? A janitor playing the hero, talking like a manager when he's pushing a mop? What kind of game is this? I'm not coming back. Not ever. What she didn't know was that the man who offered her hope was no ordinary cleaner. Days passed, and for Ella, the weight in her heart grew heavier with each sunrise. She had tried to stay calm, tried to pretend her feelings were under control. But every time she saw Marcus, her pulse quickened. Every time she heard his voice, she smiled without meaning to. Every time he looked at her, it was like the rest of the warehouse disappeared. She couldn't hide it anymore. It was a quiet Friday afternoon. Most of the staff had clocked out early. The warehouse floors were still bathed in slanted golden light. Marcus sat alone in the rear courtyard, wiping sweat from his brow after scrubbing the lobby floors. That's when she appeared. Ella walking slowly toward him, her expression unreadable but her steps full of purpose. Her heart thundered in her chest, but her eyes were clear. Marcus looked up and smiled. Hey, Ella, you're still here? She sat beside him on the low concrete ledge. There was silence for a moment before she spoke. Marcus, she said, her voice low, steady. I need to tell you something. He leaned slightly closer, sensing the seriousness in her tone. I love you, she said quietly. I've tried to hide it, tried to stay composed, but I can't anymore. I love you. I think I've loved you from the first day I saw you. The way you carried yourself, the way you listened. I just didn't want it to seem like I was too easy. Marcus's eyes softened, and when Sheila said all those things about you, Ella continued, her voice trembling. I almost believed her. She said you only loved me because I got promoted, that you wanted what I had. But thank God. I listened to my heart instead. She reached for his hand. You proved to me that real love still exists. Marcus held her hand gently, his voice thick with emotion. Ella, I love you too. And I've waited so long to hear those words from you. You have no idea how happy you've made me. She smiled, eyes misting. I can't wait to make you my husband someday. He whispered back, and I can't wait to be yours. The next morning, something happened that would shake the entire company. Helios Global called for a mandatory general staff meeting. Every employee was summoned: warehouse staff, logistics, HR, reception, security. No one knew why, but whispers had already begun. All employees were summoned to the main conference hall of Helios Global. No one knew why. The tension buzzed louder than the warehouse machinery ever had. Forklift drivers in uniforms, HR staff, security guards, senior executives. Everyone gathered, murmuring in confusion. And then, a ripple passed through the crowd. Marcus, still dressed in his usual faded work shirt and boots, walked to the front of the room and stepped up to the podium. People whispered, "Why is the janitor up there? Is this a mistake?" At the side of the room, Charles Kessler laughed loudly. Can someone get this man off the stage? He scoffed. We came for a company announcement, not a comedy show. But then another door opened. The head of security walked in silently and stood behind Marcus, like a sentinel. The room quieted. Suddenly, the massive screen behind Marcus lit up with the Helios Global logo. Then a deep, authoritative voice rang out over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mr. Marcus Ellington, the owner and founder of Helios Global Logistics. Gasps echoed through the room like thunder. Marcus reached up slowly, removed his cap, and took off his glasses. Silence. Someone dropped their phone. Charles Kessler went pale. Marcus gave a calm, measured smile. Yes, he said, I am Marcus Ellington. For the last several months, I've been working undercover here as a floor cleaner to see how this company runs. When power is stripped away, his gaze swept the room. I wanted to witness firsthand who respects people and who only respects titles, who leads with heart and who abuses power. Every eye was on him. He turned slowly to face Charles. Mr. Kessler, Marcus set his tone now sharp. Your time here is over. You've harassed staff, taken bribes. You've propositioned applicants in exchange for favors, and you've abused your authority at every turn. Charles stammered, but it was too late. Security guards stepped forward and escorted him out as the entire room watched in stunned silence. Marcus looked out at the crowd. Then his eyes found Ella, the one who saw him when he had nothing, the one who gave him respect, warmth, kindness without ever knowing who he really was. She treated me like a human being when I was invisible, he said. She shared her food, she offered dignity, she showed love. He extended his hand toward her. Ella, please come forward. She stood trembling and slowly walked to the front. There in front of the entire company, Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and dropped to one knee. The room held its breath. Ella Johnson, he said, will you marry me? Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, yes, yes. The room exploded with cheers, claps, shouts, even tears. It was the most beautiful moment of her life. Months later, in a sun-drenched garden ceremony, Ella walked down the aisle in a flowing white dress, her smile brighter than ever before. At the altar, Marcus stood waiting, no longer hidden, no longer pretending, just a man in love. Their story would be told for years, the billionaire who disguised himself as a warehouse cleaner and found true love in the heart of a humble, brave woman. Together, they ran the company side by side. Together, they built something real founded on truth, love, and quiet strength. And they lived happily ever after. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take from this dramatic tale? Was it about humility, love, or the courage to be kind when no one's watching? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe for more heart-tugging tales like this. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next twist-filled journey. Thanks for watching. Stay kind, stay brave, stay human.